outside last night, I was a little bit concerned about the weather. Perhaps you were as well. So I called up Dwight Duncan and I said, I don't know what it is that we're going to do about the weather. And he said, don't worry about it, Barry. I'll call the boss and I'll take care of it. So I don't know who he called, but thank you, Dwight. Although when Justin came in, he did try to assert that the weather was a federal responsibility. So
I'll take credit.
We have a number of people that we want to recognize here. At the end of it, if I have omitted you, I'm going to apologize in advance. When I'm done recognizing people, if you feel that you're important and should be recognized, please feel free to stand up and we'll clap for you. From the City of Windsor, we have 3 councillors here, in Ed Sleeman, Bill Mara, and Al Magny. From the county, we have the Warden, Tom Bain, Mayor Nelson Santos, who is a past candidate of ours, and the Mayor of Essex, Ron McDermott. And 3 councillors out in the county, Bill Baker, Linda McKinley, and Dave Monk. At the provincial level, we have some past members who have served our area very proudly, and those include, of course, Bill Rye, Mike Ray, and no Windsor Liberal event would be complete without Sandra Papadeas. I'd also like to recognize Ken Schmidt, who ran for us out in Essex in the last provincial election and is the current president of the Essex Provincial Liberal Association. And of course, Sandra is joined by her husband Jim Bennett, who is a member of the House of Assembly out in Newfoundland. Jim. Federally, we have past candidates locally, Melanie DeVoe, and as I mentioned, Nelson Santos. We have a past member of Parliament, Navdeep Bains. Navdeep, where are you? I talked with him earlier. There he is. And we have 4 people who have been, there's been some noise that they may be running for the leader of the federal party. Those are David Bershey, Jonathan Mosley, George McCatch, and Deb Coyne. Now, of course, we have a couple of other people who represent us provincially currently, and in a moment I'm going to have the pleasure of introducing Teresa Prusa. But before we do that, I want to let you know that we have a kids zone set up over there, so if you have any young ones, they can make wind chimes and clay modeling and painting and balloons and face paint, glitter tattoos. We never had this. We never had this stuff when we were kids, Justin, that's for sure. Over here we have a desk set up for memberships and to sign up as supporters. So any of the people who are kicking around the tires, if you want to eventually vote for them, I think it's going to be on April the 14th, you can sign up as a supporter. There have been 20,000 people across the country who have signed up as supporters. We have 470 people in the room. I want the database to grow by 470 people before we leave today, because I want them to know that Windsor represents a large chunk of support for the Liberal Party of Canada. There's also a couple of attractive young ladies who are walking around, Caroline Jacobson and Amanda Myers. They have buckets and they're after your loose change in your pockets. So please feel free to throw that in, because every time we have an event we should pass the hat. It's a nice, easy, legal way to donate federally without getting Elections Canada upset. We're going to have some door prizes that we're going to draw for later, so hang on to your tickets, because you could be eligible for all kinds of stuff that Joyce Hornet, I think Jan Westcott, there have been a number of people who have arranged for door prizes for us. But right now, to the business, because we want to keep this short. This is a barbecue after all. it gives me great pleasure to ask you to join with me in welcoming to the microphone the Member of Provincial Parliament for Windsor West, Teresa Perusa.
Good afternoon, everyone. You feel the excitement in the air in this pavilion today. What an exciting afternoon. I'm so glad to be here. It's great to see everyone. There are a few people, though, that I need to give a special hello to before I get started. One of them, of course, and I know she's here, just don't know where quite she is, my friend and predecessor, Sandra Bucatello. Where are you? She's here with her husband, Jim Bennett, MLA for St. Barbeque, who does the riding in Newfoundland. Thank you. Also need to say hello to Bill Rye, who continues to be support to me, also a past member of my area. And as well, I can't go on without, of course, thanking my family, my biggest supporters, my mom, my sister, my husband, and my boys that are sitting over here, my cousin and her kids. As we all know, without our volunteers and without our family working so closely together, we couldn't be successful. So thank you very much. It's very meaningful to me. Thank you. You know, over the past hour or so, we've been here, and as you know, or some of you may know, my first election was last fall, October 6th. So we're coming on to about a year as to when I was first elected. So first question many people ask me is, well, how's it going? And are you still enjoying it? And so what's it? Well, I'll say each day I walk through the doors of that amazing building at Queen's Park, the legislature. What an incredible building. Every day I walk through and I find something new in there. And each day I have the same feeling, how honored and privileged I am to serve my riding of Windsor West as MPP. While there, I also have the opportunity to work with some great colleagues, Premier Dalton McGuinty and the Liberal caucus. I said last year during the election, and it still rings true today, our party is the only one that has a plan to balance our budget, strengthening our economy, and maintain the gains that we've made in health and education. And we will continue to govern to those values and principles expected of us today. One of my colleagues that certainly has a lead role to play in implementing this vision is my friend, your friend, the Minister of Finance and Deputy Premier, Dwight Duncan. Now, if you've ever watched Question Period, and I'm sure everybody is riveted at the television at 10:30 when Question Period is on, you'll know that Dwight is a force to reckon with. Often, when I'm sitting in my seat, a question will come up from one of the opposition members, either PC or NDP, and I'll sit back and I'll turn to my seatmate and say, oh, now they've done it. Now they're going to get Dwight going. Here we go. And you know, he's quite a marvel to watch in the House. On Wednesday night, I've been watching some of the American conventions and American speeches, and on Wednesday night, President Bill Clinton commented on the Republican campaign, and he quoted the GOP's campaign pollsters saying, you know, we're not going to let our campaign be dictated by fact checkers. Well, I often think that the opposition doesn't let the facts get in their way at Queen's Park. You know, Dwight is always ready to correct the record and provide the facts. He's been a great support to me, and I've really enjoyed working closely with you, Dwight. Before I bring Dwight up, of course, I'd like to take a moment to thank Justin Trudeau and MP for Papadeas for joining us here this afternoon. It's been a pleasure to meet you. So again, thank you for joining us. Like to thank the other candidate possible and candidates for leadership that have come out this afternoon as well. Thank you for joining us here in Windsor, bedrock of liberalism down this way. Thank you. Now everyone, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our friend, the MPP for Windsor-Tecumseh, Minister of Finance, Deputy Premier, Dwight Duncan.
Thank you, Teresa. What a great Liberal event here today at the Tachero Club. Welcome to everybody. This is the biggest federal Liberal gathering I've seen in 20 years. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of it. I have a unique opportunity to introduce our special guest. And I thought long and hard about that opportunity and what I wanted to say. And as I reflected on it, and in fact, as I look out at this crowd, you know, there are a lot of us of a certain age who feel a certain nostalgia. But there are a lot of young people here today, too. And this isn't so much about the past as it is about the future. It's not so much about where we were, but where we are going. It is not so much about the past as it is the future. But most importantly, it's about our country, Canada. Le plus grand pays dans tout le monde et le Parti libéral, c'est une vraie part de l'avenir du Parti du Canada. That is a fact. Now, Justin Trudeau, what really struck me, I'll never forget when you ran in Papineau. Papineau, which is a tough riding. You know, I went to school in Montreal. In fact, many people don't know this. I was the youth vice president of the first No campaign in 1980, English youth vice president. And I got to know a little bit about Quebec politics. And when Justin ran in Papineau and took on the Bloc Québécois, he showed the kind of courage and fortitude that real leadership requires. That's not an easy riding for Liberals. He even had to fight for the nomination, and he won it. And then he won Papineau. And I'm told that of all the Liberal MPs in Canada, he increased his plurality more than anyone else in the last federal election. Now, we all know that Justin is weighing an important decision. And we wanted, all of the Liberals here, Justin, wanted us to have you here as our guest so they could get to meet you and get to know you. I don't think he's made that choice yet. But, Justin, if you do, I think there's more than a few people in here that would like you to do that. Harper government once and for all. So, ladies and gentlemen, with the future in mind, with our country's future in mind, and I am proud to be a Liberal, and I'm proud to be part of the party of Laurier, the party of Mr. Pearson, the party of Mr. Chrétien, and yes, the party of Pierre-Elliott Trudeau. But with the future in mind, let's give a warm Windsor Essex welcome to the Member of Parliament for Papineau. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Trudeau.
Coming out in such large numbers to support the three ridings here in Windsor, to support Dwight, to support Teresa, to support all the hard-working volunteers and community organizers, riding association presidents and members that actually make the Liberal Party operate. We cannot function without all of you. And to see all of you choosing to spend a few hours on a surprisingly gorgeous Saturday afternoon is really, really important to me, Dwight, to Teresa, and to everyone. So thank you for being here. It's a pleasure as well to meet Teresa for the first time. She does have big shoes to fill in following Sandra, but from her enthusiasm, from the brief conversations we've had already, I know that you guys are in wonderful hands. But it's especially a pleasure to be here with Dwight. Dwight, who I've known for a long time, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and of whom I know you are all very, very proud. You have a man in Dwight Duncan who represents the very best of Windsor and the very best of Windsorites. His work ethic, his dedication, his belief and commitment in service, in taking the tough decisions and making them work for everyone, not just for the people closest to him, but for everyone in the province, has made him not just an exceptional MPP and finance minister, but an exceptional example of the very best that public service has to offer. So thank you very much. Dwight, like so many Windsorites, is incredibly hardworking. I think that's one of the things that we have to remember. For all the ease with which he or many other politicians give speeches, that's not the job. For all the challenge of generating policy and finding the fine-tuned decisions that are meaningful in people's lives, that's not the job. The job at its very essence is being a good representative, being a voice for the people who've entrusted you with a responsibility and an opportunity to serve. And I think when we look at what challenges are facing the federal Liberal Party, we would do well to remind ourselves of that. Of the fact that to serve your community, to work hard for people who believe in you, who trust you to make the right decisions in their name, and to make the right decisions in the name of their children and our community at large, is at the essence of what we have to do. Now, the Liberal Party in the past years has lost its way a little bit federally. In the elections of 2000 onwards, we went from 170 seats to 130 seats to 100 seats to 75 seats to 35 seats. I'm sorry, if you continue that line, we're down to 1 seat, because I'm not losing Papadeas. But that is not the way we want to go. We have to realize that somewhere along the way, the Liberal Party lost whatever it was that we'd had. You know, in liberal circles, one of those things when people talk about our glorious past, people look at things like healthcare and the charter, and zero deficit, and all the great initiatives, multiculturalism, bilingualism, the great positions that Laurier's, Mackenzie Kings, Saint Laurent's, Trudeau, Chrétiens, Martins of the world have given to this country. You can almost forgive Liberals for sometimes sitting back and saying, the Liberal Party created Canada. But that's wrong. In fact, it's not just wrong, it's completely backwards. The Liberal Party didn't create Canada. When we were at our best, it was because Canada created the Liberal Party. And that means all of Canada. From coast to coast to coast. Urban and rural and remote. English, French, new Canadians. Canadians of all sorts of different religious and cultural backgrounds. Canadians from the East, Canadians from the West. People realize that this country has been and continues to be built on getting along, on working together, on coming together and understanding that we are strong not in spite of our differences, but because of those differences. And that's why we're encountering the problems we are right now. And don't get me wrong, Canada's not the problem. Canadians are not the problem. Canadians have never been as confident, as strong, as open, as hardworking as they are right now. The problem in Canada is that we have a government right now in Ottawa that does not trust Canadians. It is short-sighted and small-minded and has figured out the unfortunate reality of post-Rovian politics. I know you guys watch the United States because you have so many friends from the States, and watching the Democratic and Republican conventions of the past weeks, one can't help but see what happens when the politics of polarization and division hold sway. But Stephen Harper figured that out. And he realized a fairly dirty secret of politics, which is if you skillfully and strategically divide people, pick the right wedge issue, pick the right way of playing up one community against another, tweak the right angle on things, reach out to micro-targeted groups, you can get elected. How? You can even get a majority. What we have now in Ottawa is proof of that. But what we have now in Ottawa is also proof of is even though you might be able to get elected with the politics of fear and division, you can't actually govern worth a damn when that's what gets you elected. Stephen Harper has increased an unfortunate trend that we see in politics these days, which is the cynicism. The cynicism that so many of us feel when we look at politics and how it's going to impact on our own lives. The time of believing in a vision for this country seems hopelessly passé. The idea that a government should have an ambitious plan to make Canada better, stronger, fairer, more prosperous, greener, is horribly outdated. An old idea, isn't it? Canadians just want their government to stay out of their way as much as possible and to allow us, apparently, to continue to coast on what generations before us have built in this extraordinary country. Never actually solve a problem when a band-aid will suffice. Never actually deal with an issue when you can power out the right soundbite and reassure everyone in the short term. That's unfortunately what we've gotten to right now in our federal politics. And unfortunately, all that does is increase the cynicism that hardworking Canadians face every single day when they deal with politics, when they think of politics, when they sigh about politics. The voter turnout continues to decrease. People continue to throw up their hands and say, well, I don't care if you're in contempt of Parliament, you're all in contempt of us anyway, so we won't pay any attention. And we've gotten to a place where people are automatically ready to vote against. You park yourself on the left and you vote against the right. Or you park yourself on the right and you vote against the left. You know what? That works for Stephen Harper. And unfortunately, the NDP made a decision that that works for them too. Federally, in choosing Thomas Mulcair, there is no question that the NDP picked a man who's just as tough and mean and hard as Stephen Harper is. He's a flip side of the same coin, on the opposite side of the ideological spectrum. And the way that Stephen Harper has put an X over Quebec and anchors himself in the West is mirrored in a way that Mr. Mulcair recently put an X over Alberta and is anchoring himself in the areas that he thinks he can win in. Well, this trend is not just bad for politics, it's bad for Canada. It is about time we understood that we can be better, that we can be more, that we can pull together and actually stand and vote for something and not just against something. But if we are to do that, we have to pull together. And we, my fellow Liberals, have an awful lot of hard work ahead of us. Because there are no shortcuts. There is no easy way to suddenly getting back into a place of relevance for Canadians across the country. It is only by reaching out, opening ourselves, our hearts to Canadians, and understanding that the solutions we need can and will come from every corner of the country. That Canadians, for all our diversity, are united around a core set of shared values that make us one of the most extraordinary and unique countries on this planet. Everywhere around the world, people are trying to figure out how to get along in spite of their differences, in spite of the pressures, in spite of the temptation to point fingers and blame them, or those people who live over the river, or on the other side of the border, or who speak a different language or of a different culture. And the world needs us to let aside the politics of division and pull together. But more than just the world needs us to do that, we need to do that for ourselves. Depuis trop longtemps, le Canada est en train de se dire ça va assez bien, on va pas trop se déranger, on va pas trop s'inquiéter, on va s'occuper de nos affaires et ça ira. Canada says we can just coast by. We're doing pretty well. Those problems around the world aren't hitting us, so let's not worry about them. We're better than that. This country, this extraordinarily wonderful, improbable country, was built by people who came from all corners of the world, trying to build a better life for themselves. Whether they've been here 30,000 years, or 500 years, or just a few weeks, the reality is when you get here, you realize it's too cold, too many months of the year, too hot for an ever so brief week or two, but too big, too much space between our settlements, between our farms, between our land, for us not to know that we can lean on each other. For us to choose to build barriers between each other. We need to pull together. We need to understand that when we are at our best as a Liberal Party, we can always be anyone else's best. Because we learn from the values of Canadians, the hopes and the dreams of Canadians. And we strive to represent everyone, not just those who elect us, not just those who agree with us, but understand that this country is better than the narrow partisanship that infects modern politics. This is something that we're forgetting, that we're allowing ourselves to forget. We're allowing the politics of division and spin to carry us forward lethargically into a future that is uncertain. Instead of saying, let's build our future. Let's create a future. Let's pull together and work in a direction where we know we're going to be able to balance environment, economy, and energy. We're going to be able to create opportunity for all and understand the need to have driving forces economically that create that prosperity. We're going to need to realize that solutions don't come from the left or from the right. They come from the left and from the right and from the middle and from behind us and from ahead of us. And to lock ourselves into an ideology, well, that's just not unlike the Liberal Party. That's actually unlike Canada. We are not a country of ideology. We are not a country that defines itself by left or right. We define ourselves by right or wrong. We define ourselves by future versus past. We build for tomorrow. And our challenge right now, and our general uneasiness that we all feel, is that far too many Canadians are beginning to suspect and perhaps realize that it's not a given. For the first time in generations, it's not a given that our children will do as well or better than we will. We wonder if we haven't reached some sort of limit. And that's very scary. Because there's nothing I want more as a dad to know that my kids are going to do extraordinarily well and turn me into a footnote in history. But that's not easy. Because right now, as we look around us, the crises that are hitting us, the challenges around the environment, challenges around economy, challenges around social justice, human rights that are hitting us all around the world, we wonder what the kind of future our young people are facing. And that's not Canada. The Canadian dream is that we will be able to build a future collectively that is better for our children. And what that is going to require of us is nothing less than our very best. So to Liberals, I tell you, enough talk of renewing or recreating the Liberal Party. Not going to be enough. We need to create. We need to build the Liberal Party. We need to realize that as we open up and begin once again to listen to Canadians, to connect with Canadians, to earn the trust of Canadians, then and only then will we be worthy of serving Canadians. So the coming years are going to be a real challenge for all of us. All of us who want to choose a tougher way than the easy paths of division, of pointing fingers at the reactionary capitalists of the right or the socialist hippies of the left to be. That's not what I'm saying, that's the perspective that people have. But it's easy to sit on one side and talk about the other. It's harder to try and say, okay, let's work together and build something. Let's work together and create something. But let's work together. Any sense of entitlement, any sense of automatic, tumbling back into power, I think been more or less flushed from the Liberal Party. But now we have to build. Now we have to work together. Now we have to be worthy of the collective dreams we have. And yes, we have a leadership campaign coming up. And I don't doubt there will be lots of wonderful people in that leadership campaign. But the leader doesn't matter nearly as much as the movement that we will build. A movement of Canadians who know that we can do better than what we have in Ottawa right now. That we can do better for ourselves, for our neighbors, for our children. And that the only way that we will do better is if we roll up our sleeves and make it happen. That's what Canada needs. That's what the Liberal Party is going to bring. That's what we're all going to do together.
Right now, Papadeas, the president of the Windsor West Federal Liberal Association, is going to thank our keynote speaker, Justin Trudeau. But before I do that, I was remiss. I know I made a joke, and she's going to kill me, and I can't believe that I forgot her. Melanie, I'm so sorry. Melanie DeVoe, who ran for us in Windsor West. Where is she at? There she is. Down at the table, and I had this sinking feeling running right through me right now. Also, I want to recognize the Windsor Association presidents, Mike Stipick, Pat, Sammy Masloom of Windsor West, and I said earlier, Ken Schmidt out in Essex. They've done a great job. And ladies and gentlemen, before we call Pat, can you please give a round of applause to all the volunteers who work on if I didn't recognize my wife, Fowler. Just in case you don't know, she does all the work, I get all the credit. Ladies and gentlemen, Papadeas.
Thanks, Mary. Mary had the itinerary top secret, so I actually didn't know that I was going to be speaking. So as a result, I'll say that's the reason why I'm speechless. Justin, thank you so much for taking the time from your schedule, away from your family and your very busy life, for coming and visiting us here in Windsor and Essex, and for the excitement that you're bringing to our area today, and to the excitement that you're bringing to the party and to the future of Canada. We wish you all the best, and thank you very much again.
I'm told that Justin's going to be with us at about 3:45, then he has to go to the airport. If you haven't had a chance to get your picture with him or any of the other leadership, potential leadership candidates or ministers or representatives, please feel free to do so. We've got about an hour to do that. Does everybody have their tickets out? Because we're going to draw some door prizes. There's about 20. Darren, how many am I supposed to draw out here? 18 Chinese food. Jan Westcott brought some locally manufactured grain products that we're going to be raffling off as well. I'm just going to call out the number. We're going to call out the first 20 numbers, and then we're going to let you guys start mingling again. So, Dwight, Teresa, Justin, if you guys can come up here and start. Then we have Al Magni, 594. Remy Searles, 569. George O'Sheafor, 644. Deb Coyne, 853. Krishner, 346. Romain Chauvin, 267. Mila Kanya, 0108. Back here. Right. Yeah, just come up and we'll hand these out. Sabrina Fryer, 0212. Al Clark, 0350. Abdullah Mushtaq, 001.